Psilocybin is a naturally occurring compound found in certain mushrooms, often called magic mushrooms. But beyond the nickname, there's serious science. In recent years, researchers have turned their attention to psilocybin for its promising effects on the human brain, especially for treating mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Once ingested, psilocybin is converted in the body into a compound called psilocin. Psilocin is the real actor. It interacts directly with the brain, mainly by binding to serotonin receptors. In particular, it targets the 5-HT2A receptor, which is found in high levels in the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain involved in decision-making, personality expression, and mood regulation. This interaction changes how neurons fire and how brain circuits communicate. One major effect is an increase in cortical excitation. Basically, brain cells in certain areas become more active. This can lead to changes in perception, emotion, and even our sense of self. One of the most interesting findings from brain imaging studies is that psilocybin reduces activity in a network called the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is involved in things like self-reflection, daydreaming, and remembering the past. Under psilocybin, the DMN becomes less dominant. This change is strongly linked to what users describe as ego dissolution, a temporary loss of the usual boundaries between self and the world. At the same time, other parts of the brain start talking to each other in new ways. Regions that usually operate independently begin to synchronize. This can create novel insights, enhanced creativity, and new emotional perspectives. But psilocybin doesn't just change brain activity temporarily, it may also help the brain grow. Preclinical studies in animals show that psilocybin can increase the number of connections between neurons. It promotes the growth of dendritic spines, tiny structures that help neurons communicate. This growth is linked to an increase in a protein called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF supports neuron health, learning, and memory. In other words, psilocybin may help rewire the brain in healthy ways. That's one reason it's being studied so intensely for conditions like depression and anxiety, where brain networks often become stuck in rigid, unhealthy patterns. Another key area affected by psilocybin is the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center. Under psilocybin, the amygdala becomes less reactive to negative emotional stimuli. People often report a greater sense of emotional clarity and reduced fear, even when thinking about past trauma or distressing memories. Psilocybin also increases what scientists call neural entropy, a measure of how many different patterns of brain activity are happening. A more entropic brain is more flexible and less stuck in repetitive thinking. This may help explain why people with depression often feel like their mind opens up during a psilocybin experience. All of this suggests that psilocybin doesn't just create a temporary shift in mood, it may unlock deeper levels of psychological healing by helping the brain become more adaptable, emotionally balanced, and connected. Of course, psilocybin is still being studied. Researchers are trying to understand the best dosages, the safest ways to use it, and how it should be combined with therapy. But the early results are promising enough that the FDA has granted breakthrough therapy status to psilocybin treatments for depression. As we continue to explore this compound, one thing is clear. Psilocybin is more than just a psychedelic experience. It's a powerful tool for understanding and healing the human brain.